What am I doing? This one, edit privacy, friends. All right. All right. Okay. See it. So therefore, I know that I'm broadcasting on Facebook, which is really good. Savings are automatic. All right. Hey, Heidi Hope. Heidi Hope. Good day. Good day. How are you? Oh, I always get confused. Today, that didn't sound good. Today is June the 17th, and President Biden is, if he hasn't already done it, is going to make Juneteenth a national holiday in the United States. Now, if you don't know what Juneteenth is when the last of the slaves in Texas were made aware that they were now free and they were no longer owned by anybody, which I always thought was stupid. How can you own a person, really? Let me just go back. All right. It's a bit better. I can see the top of my head now. So first of all, I'd like to say thank you for popping in and being part of my broadcast, whether you're watching live or it's a replay. Thank you so much for doing that. Thank you for watching me on Hacks and Twitter and Facebook and YouTube. So thank you so much. Just realized that the music may be a no-no on Twitter. So I mean on Facebook. Or, no, YouTube. I do not own the rights to the music you're hearing. This is on a channel on YouTube called Classic Rock and Hip Hop, or sorry, Noise Explorer. So that's their music, not mine. So I don't own the rights. So that's kind of something I wanted to say. I wanted to say if you would like to download the Haps app, and you can use it on the go on your phone, your tablet. If you want to use it on your computer, there's more options when you're streaming live. There's a studio app on here, which I'm using right now. Um, it's kind of a cool background setting. It shows you a lot of things, so I'm quite impressed with Haps. Haps is a very good app. Um, and I'm very happy, joy that the U.S. is going to make June 19th, Juneteenth, as a national holiday. It's the first one since Martin King, Martin Luther King Day. It's the first one since then. So that says a lot to me about what this president wants to do. This president seems more open to creating positive change instead of igniting anger and resentment and all that stuff. I'm going to listen to the YouTube thing later because I just can't. I'm going to watch my broadcast also on Facebook because I keep missing. What do you mean Haps? I don't want to go to Haps. I want to go back to my Facebook account. Okay. So I am watching right now the Facebook account, and I do apologize if you have tried to contact me on Facebook. I'm not sure about Twitter. I haven't checked it, to be honest. I didn't check it yesterday. I was going to, but I forgot. Um, So I just like to say thank you to those people who have stepped in and yesterday was great. I was making a dream catcher, which I've since decided I want to make it a different color, so that one will be made. But I've also got a different one going, and the interesting thing is, I have to have it today. That's my plan. That was my goal. So I have to work on something. So, but I'm very happy that Juneteenth is going to be a national holiday in the United States. It's about damn time, you know. I mean, making movement forward, having Black Lives Matter, a lot of people were down on them and stuff, but they really started a movement and they really lit a fire. And that started when Trayvon Martin died. Black Lives Matter sprung up, and people were saying the police should be charged for what they did. Or, sorry, not the police should be charged, but George Zimmerman should be charged for what he did. Because he did do some pretty nasty things. I have a blog, or had a blog, um, and I'll tell you what, in there I had the autopsy photos, including pictures of Trayvon Martin, who supposedly repeatedly punched George Zimmerman in the face, and yet he didn't have any abrasions on his hands. So explain that to me. But anyway, I'll talk about Trayvon Martin on another day. Juneteenth right now, I'm so excited. I think it's about damn time that people step up in the United States and say, you know what, these were people. They were treated like animals. They weren't treated like people, like human beings, like you and I would be treated, like you and I would demand to be treated. These are people who were taken from their homes, from their families. Many died in the bottoms of those ships. Um, People like Christopher Columbus was a slave owner. And if he didn't like what the slave did or said, he would cut their hands off and he would wear them around his neck. And if you don't believe that, look it up. I don't understand. They should just scratch Christopher Columbus Day and make it Indigenous Peoples Day across the United States. That's what I think. But who am I? I'm just a Canadian. Lynchburg, Tennessee. Hello. I don't think I've been to Lynchburg, Tennessee, but I drove through a lot of Tennessee though. I stayed out in Lebanon, which is about maybe a half hour east, I think, of Nashville, and I love the towns. Murfreesboro. I have such a hard time saying that. Oh, oh, are you okay, Riley? Oh, jeez, that didn't sound good. Anyway, um, I love Tennessee. Tennessee is beautiful. That through all the states that I drove through, like I drove through Utah, Washington, um, next one, Idaho, Nevada, to Utah, Colorado, Utah, Colorado. Oh my God, Colorado! That highway outside of that's just horrible. Lynchburg, Virginia. See, y'all make me nervous because there's too many names that are the same. What happened exactly? Yeah, yeah, Virginia. I know. That's a place where I've heard Virginia is beautiful. What I want to do, my husband and I, is rent a car from Florida and drive all the way up the coast, see the states that are there, and because I would love. I mean, I've been to the John F. Kennedy Space Station, and that was awesome. I went there because my friend in Alabama repeatedly said, Wanda, when you go to Florida, you have to check this out. And he was a huge space buff. he passed away, so I figured, well, I'm going to do this in his honor. So I did. I went to the John F. Kennedy space station, and I'll tell you, it was a surreal experience to be able to see all of the shuttles and the rockets and hear the stories and see the platform where what do you call it? Is it Virgin? No, uh, they take off from there anyway. The base was built specifically for their rocket ships, and shortly after we had been there, there was an explosion from one of those rockets that they tried to fire. So that was interesting. Um, it's great, except for the only thing, because I'm physically challenged. I use forearm crutches and a mobility device to get around. Uh, it's kind of hard for people like me, because you have to take a bus. It's like a tour bus from the beginning, and then you take it over far, far, far away, and they tell you all of these things. It's a little tour. Yeah, I don't know. See, I really liked him too. And I don't understand why now people get upset with the Monica Lewinsky's of the world, Bill Clinton. You know what I mean? He was a big philanderer, that dude. He slept with Marilyn Monroe. I mean, their compound was well known for having women there, you know? So, I mean, it's not a, I, I never understood that, you know? Why does it work for one president, but the other one doesn't get a passport? You know what I mean? He would have been such a great person to meet, I feel. I feel like he really he really was there for his people, you know? That's what I feel. And I don't feel that, he was just a politician, but he was there. You know what I mean? Not just a politician, but a person who cared, who actually cared about his people. Yeah, right? Double standard. But I'm so happy right now with Juneteenth becoming a national holiday. Yeah, I'm happy with it. And the reason I'm so happy with it is because many people didn't know that the people in Texas, the slaves there, had no idea that it was over, that slavery was done, that they were free. They were the last people to know. And I believe it was 1867, I believe. And they were the last people to find out they were no longer slaves. They didn't have to work for other people and be treated worse than animals, you know? Yeah, they're both them too, right? But I think what Biden's doing, and I think why he won, is because he's one of those presidents. He feels like somebody you could just go up to and say hello, and he'd say, "Hey, how you doing?" You know. And I feel the same way with JFK and Bill Clinton. I feel that way. I feel like they would be in Obama, right? Love them or hate them, they seem like really easy, down to earth people. Trump, I couldn't even imagine trying to meet Trump, you know. But the other presidents, yeah, I'd love to meet them. And it doesn't matter what their party is, it's who they are as a person. If they treat their people with respect and like people, that's what really matters, you know? And I find that with this becoming a national holiday in the United States, it's a start. It's not a finish to the problems. 1619 was when the first slaves came to the New World. Jamestown, Virginia. I'm on the front. Really? 400-year battle. Holy man. Oh, my Lanta. Yeah, people don't understand, I think. Like, I'm First Nations, Native Canadian, Métis, and people don't understand that even our people were treated like animals. They were taken for slaves. People don't talk about that. They don't talk about the killings at the schools, at the residential schools. They don't talk about it, because they don't understand it. They don't know because it's not their culture. And they can't understand it. And they weren't there when it happened. All understandable. But I feel like to educate yourself, you have to really look into it. You can't just say, this is my opinion. No, me either. I was never a supporter of Trump, but never. From the days when he had his apprentice, I quit watching the show because I couldn't stand him. He was so, I don't know, he's exactly the same way when he became president. I mean, did people expect him to change? No. I mean, once you're that age, you're not going to change. My mother in law is 80. There's no way she's going to change the way that she thinks and stuff because that's how she grew up, right? They just found the first 20 African slaves that came to the New World, which was my state of Virginia. My state is where it all started. Yeah, and you know what? That's history, right? That's history, but it's history. It should be taught. People should know. People, school kids, should have to get on a bus and go and visit a plantation. That's what they need to do to understand. I didn't like him in the 90s either. No, he's just, he gets away with everything, right? Before he's president, oh yeah, I can grab anybody by the pussy. I can, I just walk up and kiss them. And then, he's going through with Jean Carroll, who is on Twitter. You may follow her. And she is going after Trump because she claims he raped her. And she has her dress that apparently has his semen on it. So it's his DNA. So she is right now before the courts trying to battle that. Unfortunately, the United States Attorney General is involved with it, representing Trump in this particular case. How many millions of dollars is he wasting? The country is wasting. It could go to people who need it, who need the help. But, uh, I feel like people like Trump and then I don't know, in all the politicians, I've never not known a first lady not to be very public. I mean, look at Joe Biden. She is very public. She's very public. She's out there. She's happy. She's smiling. But Ivanka never, not Ivanka, Melania. I keep mixing them up. They're just basically the same person, in my opinion. Um, he did say at one point that if if that wasn't his daughter, that he would probably date her. Well, what father says that? Donald Trump. And he certainly would never have done Juneteenth. And I don't care what he says. I don't care what his family say. I don't care what Giuliani says. He started the resurrection in the United States. He fired up his base days before that, weeks before that. He knew, as did the government know, that this was all Twitter everywhere. It was everywhere on private message boards and everything that this was going to happen. And he said things to ignite those people. I say that when you broadcast, you never know who's watching and who's listening and how they may take what you're saying. So, really, you have to be careful what you're saying. History was my best subject in school, and I still love it because that's how we're going to change the world. And I hope they talk about what really happened with the Native people and what really happened with the African people who came from, well, not just Africa, but other countries. I mean, I got really tired and I found it a little racist, to be honest, that in the United States, black people are referred to as African American. Well, I don't see people saying, "Oh, those are Irish Americans, those are German American." You know, it's not that way, and that specifically bugs me because not every black person in the United States came from Africa. Lots did, but not every black person, and it really bugs me because people don't talk about that, you know? And so I just said black, the same as you'd say Caucasian, the same as you'd say Hispanic or Asian. Those are, you know, you could kind of figure things out, but you don't call a person an Asian American, you know, because in my mind, that's stereotyping somebody. They're just American, aren't they? If they're born in the country, aren't they born and they're just American? And, you know, it just kind of bugs me. It's like, don't single them out for where you think some people came from, or some people did, but not every person. So, I mean, I made a point, and I used to talk to a gentleman from California, and he said that he says he got really mad, and he told me, "You don't know anything about slavery. You've never seen where they had to live. You can't say that your relatives were slaves, you know." And I said, "No, I can't. You're completely right. The same as you can't understand that our people were taken away from their families. They were, and this happened from the late 1800s till the early 2000s, where our children were taken from us because of their skin color, because of who their parents were, because their parents were First Nations, because maybe their mother was a single mother. And they take them. It was called the 60s scoop in the 1960s. They took babies from mothers at the hospital. They took them from their arms and they adopted them out. And one of these people was in, I think it was, oh, Michigan. He grew up in a, like on a farm, basically. And he had no idea he was adopted until he became an adult. And then he realized, wait a minute, I really don't look like these people. So he started digging. Turns out he was Canadian. He was born in Canada, but he was adopted out to a white family because they figured that would be the best place for our kids. Um, Unfortunately, not every story is good that way. I met a gentleman who was homeless and walking around one day, and he came up to me when he saw me on crutches and he said, "Hey, are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, yeah, I'm fine." I said, "How are you?" You know, because I don't treat homeless people any different than I would treat someone else. If you are not nice to me, then I can be not nice to you. But if you're nice to me, I don't care what you look like, what you have on for clothes or don't, you know. But this guy was clean, long hair, native. And it turns out his name was Robbie, which is my uncle's name on my mom's side. And so we kind of connected over that and we started talking. And I realized his hand was swollen, like really badly. And he had broken his arm. They took the cast off, but I think he had an infection. So I went and bought him a sling. I asked him, can I buy you a sling? Right. And he said, "Yeah, okay, I'll accept that." But we were talking for a while, and this guy was part of the 60 scoop. But when he was taken away as a young, like a little boy, he was used, unfortunately, for sexual purposes and used and abused in photos and videos and all that kind of stuff. This poor kid. You know, no wonder he grew up to have problems, you know, like drug problems. He wasn't an alcoholic, but you could see, you know, he has addiction. He told me he had an addiction to drugs, you know. Hi, Melanie. Thank you so much for that email today or yesterday. If anybody does want to email me, oh, remember today is June 17th. I have to keep looking at it. What's the date today? It's June 17th. All right. Um, Thank you. You can email me at realvoiceforsilent at gmail.com. So yeah, and that's with the number four, not the word four. Real voice for silent dog at gmail.com. But I mean, it's hasn't been great for First Nations people, and they recently, like last month, found 215 remains of children as young as 3 years old at a residential school. Now, residential schools start at age 5, so I know why there's children as young as 3 who were buried. And that's because, unfortunately, the Catholic religion and the other religious people who looked after our kids or tortured our children, they they probably had these children with children, and they had to bury the evidence. And that's unfortunate, but that's the way it was. And it is. They're looking all over Canada at residential schools now, and they're getting help now from the government to actually be able to search for babies and children who never return home and whose parents never knew what happened. In many cases, they're not going to find any records because they didn't keep records about that. Unfortunately, it was native child, age blank, died on this day or whatever. But even those records don't exist right now. So they never know who these children, who the children are and who they belong to. Some people in Canada are calling Canada Day for us not to celebrate but to mourn the children who were lost at the residential schools. Now, if they made it a national holiday, although June 21st is Aboriginal or First Nations Day in Canada, it's a holiday right across the board. We don't celebrate Christopher Columbus, the slave owner. I had such a heated discussion with somebody from Italy, and they were all like, Christopher Columbus never had slaves. Christopher Columbus never, you know, cut their hands off. Yes, he did. He was not a nice person. And a lot of people don't even understand that he didn't even set foot on the land. And he was off his kilter because he thought he was in India, which is why he called the brownish skinned people here Indians. That's how stupid Christopher Columbus is. And I get in trouble because, you know, some people are really upset. Like, why would you say that? Christopher Columbus was great and we celebrate him in the United States. And I don't care. And in some of the states in the US, they don't celebrate Columbus Day, they celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day, like in Washington State, across the border from me. They don't celebrate Columbus Day because they realize it's a very, get rid of it. Call it what it should be. Call it Indigenous Peoples Day or First Nations Day or whatever. If Juneteenth can happen, anything's possible in the United States. And you should be wanting to celebrate the people of First Nations who also lost their lives as slaves, who also were killed. I mean, they brought what was called the smallpox blanket from the overseas when they came to Canada. What they did was they didn't realize Canada was so cold, and being from Europe, they weren't prepared for the temperatures and the cold, and so they started to get involved with the First Nations people who were local at that time, and they started to trade things with the First Nations people. And that's kind of what we still do that. We still trade things. We sometimes you don't spend money on something, you just trade one thing for another. That's just the way we do it. And back then, that's the way we did it. So they gave them blankets and they gave them coats and mittens, things to wear, boots to wear that were fur lined so that they wouldn't be cold. And in exchange, they said, well, you know what? How about we give you tobacco? Because tobacco wasn't from here. And then they said, how about we give you this alcohol, which was called firewater for many, many, I don't know how long they said it was, but firewater. And those were the things that were brought and introduced to the First Nations people. And, you know, the illnesses that they brought with them were never experienced by our First Nations families. And so many, 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 many people died, our First Nations people, because they were not prepared to deal with the sicknesses that the Europeans brought with them. But people have to realize, get over yourself if you're somebody who believes that, Caucasian, I don't know why you call yourself white power, because white is like this. This is white. I don't know too many people who are this color. Maybe if you're albino, you might be, but I no, nobody's this color. So why say white power? Sounds stupid. I've gone up about with racists and stuff, and I had this one person who stalked me for 6 years from a board that I posted on, which was a public board, where the question was, should this politician be able to um, be elected if they don't believe that First Nations people are people, and they don't believe that they're going to represent the First Nations people in their constituency. So that was the question. And this person had said and done many, many terrible things to First Nations people. And I simply stated that no, she shouldn't be able to run, because when you represent your constituency, you have to represent everybody in your constituency, not just the few people that you choose who are the right color skin. And so that person, who I didn't know this person at all, she commented, she replied to what I said, and she called me a whole bunch of names, and a dirty Indian, and a drunk, and a product of incest, and a drug addict, homeless, live on a reserve, and all, and the thing was, that's what she assumed, right? To which I replied, like, I didn't reply, but in my mind, I wanted to reply, that's mighty white of you to say. You know what I mean? And it's like, how do you respond to people who are so ignorant and have no idea about learning about anything other than what they think they know? Um, Fortunately, she's gone to court with her own family because she went online and she did some really nasty things to her family, including at one point she registered over 200 websites using people's names, and she's done it for 10 years. So in some cases they were 10 years, and she paid for them with her father's credit card. And so there was a lot more problems with her, but I seriously think she needs mental health help. So I just, like, every time she sent me a message or made a video about me, because she did, um, every time she, made claims that the police were coming to get me, and all this, I just ignored all of that, and I realized that she's mentally not well. But there's another person who's come after me who's mentally not well as well. And I just realized that she's been stalking my Twitter, and she is an autistic adult. And some people don't know, but some autistic people if they, because they can't read what your face is saying, they may not understand what you're typing. They may read it a completely different way. And in her case, she just decided to come after me, and she's a lady from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Another one I don't know, but they went on to make a page on the dirty about me, and then I made a page on the dirty about me because I figured, oh well, Tick can play this game. So if you look me up on thedirty.com, you'll find there's two. So this other lady has started stalking me again, and she's posting terrible things. She says she's claiming that she has voice voice to sound or something, voice to skull, that there's some sort of radio interference set up so that, I don't know, that she hears things and that they're sending her messages and things. It sounds like QAnon to me, but they send her messages, and she says that just by me being alive that I killed her cat. um, she's made some really outrageous claims. And yet another one, you just can't look at and say, can I be angry with this person? Should I waste my anger when I know they're not mentally well? And that's what they do. If you look up autism and stalking online, you'll find a whole bunch of cases that have gone to court. People have been arrested. It doesn't matter if you're autistic, you still know right from wrong. You know, it doesn't matter. I have people in my life who are autistic and they know right from wrong. They're not going to do something. I mean, I used to play poker at these poker tournaments with a lady. I think I can't remember what her name was now, but she one day she was very quiet when she'd come to poker, but she always do well at poker. And so one day we started talking, and she told me, yeah, she says, not too many people know, but I've got autism. I'm on the autism spectrum. And I said, wow, but you seem to be doing okay. It's just like any other problem in my mind. If you have depression, if you have, um, you can control it, I guess. You can control and look after it. Look after yourself, look after, the people around me. What am I doing today? Well, all day I'm going to be what you suggested. I'm going to, I think, talk about on a Friday or a Saturday. And that way it's more like maybe a weekly thing but I would like to get people in. Are you interested in possibly coming on as a guest, Melanie? Because you can turn your cam off if you like and just enable your microphone. And I won't do that today, but it would be interesting to talk to people and get their perspective. You live the lifestyle, so I would be interested in knowing from your point of view um, how it is, and if you're able to talk to people about it, or are you ashamed or worried or concerned, or because of what other people say and do, you know. So that's what I would like to do if you're into it. Friday or Saturday, maybe Friday night. Um, so when I say Friday night, I'm keeping it so on the West Coast, or sorry, the East Coast is 3 hours ahead. So if I started it roughly 5, 5 p.m. my time, that would be 8 p.m. Eastern time. Um, so it would be 5 Pacific time, 6 Mountain, 7 Central, 8 Eastern, 9 Atlantic. And I think Florida is on that time zone as well. So That's what I would like to do. You'll think about it, okay? Because you don't have to put your face out there. If you don't want to, that's okay. But just talking about it, just sharing an experience. Los Angeles, oh my God, I love Los Angeles. I don't know how many times I've been lost in Los Angeles. We say to the you know, the thing that tells you, okay, go turn this way, turn that way, right? Directions or whatever. So we follow it because we were staying over in oh my goodness, in Orlando, not Orlando, sorry, Orange County, where Disneyland is. So we were staying over there, and so we had to drive from there, in which turned out to be like almost rush hour, but it wasn't rush hour. It was just lots of like construction everywhere. Holy man, the traffic down there in Los Angeles is a nightmare, and so was that stupid map thing, because it ended up taking us through East LA, through the worst parts, through where people were homeless. There's the homeless shelters. There's people selling drugs. There's lots of things going on, and I'm like, oh my God, where are we, right? And people are saying, nice truck, nice truck. And then this one guy goes, yeah, nice truck, man. And then he starts walking towards us at a red light. My husband said, oh my God, right? So he just he just laughed. But I love it. What is it? MacArthur Park, um, which I think was the song in Diana Summers. I think maybe that's where she got that song. The words from MacArthur. MacArthur Park is crying in the rain. Anyway, um, Los Angeles is awesome. You know, we did the touristy thing where you go Hollywood, took pictures, Hollywood and Vine, went into Ripley's. Now that Ripley's is supposed to be haunted, and I didn't know that. So next time I go to Ripley's, because you always get an eerie feeling when you go in there. So I always picked up on it, but nobody ever talked about it until all these paranormal shows started going and checking it out, right? So I love I love Los Angeles. I love California. We've driven I-5 from, because that's what the border, which is about half an hour away from me right now. Uh, I-5 straight down. Well, that's Pacific time. So that would be about 5 o'clock. It'd be on a Friday or Saturday though, because a lot of people are still at work. Hmm. And it'll be too late for the people overseas in the UK and stuff, but because they're 8 hours ahead of me, so it would be three in the wait, no, 5, 7, 11, 1 o'clock in the morning. So I don't think that there's going to be people from the United Kingdom there. So I'm just going to say right again that this is June 16th, 2021. And so if you're going to watch this as a replay, keep in mind that I will review the comments, because you're still allowed to comment even though the video is over. So I will look at it. Thank you very much. Um, but Los Angeles, man, oh my God. But the traffic. San Francisco, crazy. I love the town, but crazy with the hills and going like this, and you have to go around like this. You can't go straight because you'll you'll just keep going, and it won't end up good for you or the person you hit. But I love it. You'll still be at work Saturday. How about Saturday? Would Saturday work better? I don't know if you work on a Saturday, but oh yeah, I hate it. But there's that little gift shop next to Man's Chinese Theater. There's those little gift shops there. Man, they had some really good sales there. It was when we went there, it was anything in the store was $5 each. And I was like, okay, a Saturday would be good. And like I said, you don't have to go on your cam if you don't want to. However, I would like for you to speak, that way I can understand and we can explain it because there's a lot of people out there who don't understand alternate lifestyles. They don't understand it and they fear it. And they that's the best way to put it. Yeah, that's good for me. We were thinking too of starting to do like a driving broadcast during on Saturday or Sunday. Have to figure it out, but just to show people what it looks like here and the different touristy and non-touristy spots. I want to go into. I also read tarot cards, and I'm into. Um, if I say the occult, people are going to go, "Oh my God, she's a demon! Oh no, she's a devil!" But um, I'm into Wicca, so some people know it as witchcraft. But I'm a white witch, not a black witch. Black witches do bad things to people. White witches don't. We're pretty much the way it works in Wicca is that you have to have permission from the person before you do something, a spell or something. You have to do that. And you have to be very careful. If you do it on yourself, it may backfire. So it's not recommended for you to do, say, a money spell on yourself because one one husband and wife I was talking to, they're both Wiccan and they're both high priests. And the guy decided to do a money spell on himself because funds were tight. So he did a money spell, right? And then he lost his thumb. And because he lost his thumb, like he cut his thumb off, he couldn't work anymore at his job, what he was doing. So all of a sudden he gets his all this money that's coming in and everything, right? So he did get money, but it just wasn't a good way to get money. You know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, Saturday does sound good. And I'm thinking maybe at 5 o'clock starting it. So five five our time, Pacific time. So that's again I'll do 5 p.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. A mountain, 7 p.m. Central time, 8 p.m. Eastern time, and what is it, 9 p.m. Atlantic. I'm trying to remember. But I just want to say regarding this Juneteenth, I think that it's amazing that it's going to be a holiday. If it isn't already, if he hasn't already signed the papers, he's going to today, and I'm very excited about that. And and the reason I'm excited is because it's one step, but it's one step in the right direction. You can never get over what happened to Black people or First Nations people. Can never, we'll never forget it. And I don't hold people responsible today for what happened to my mom and her entire family, for instance. I don't hold people who I talk to. Like I had a wonderful conversation with Ken Luxilian, Luxilian or what I can't remember, but Ken is from the UK, and he didn't really understand why people were saying that the Catholic Church owes the First Nations people an apology. Didn't understand it, and I get it. And he said, "What can we do now about it, though? If it happened, it happened. What are we going to do? You know?" And what we can do is learn. We can educate ourselves. We can make sure that that never, ever, ever, ever happens again. Today's kids, and I'm speaking from personal experience, they don't care what your skin color is. They don't care what your religion is. They don't care about that stuff. All they care about is if you're a good friend. That's all they care about, really. So I've been on here for 49 minutes, almost 50 now. Wow. But I do want to say that, I believe that just like it's Aboriginal for Aboriginal Day here in Canada, that Christopher Columbus Day should be turned into that as well, all through the United States. Maybe if Joe Biden knew about what happened to our people too and our children and the massacres that happened. Um, I can't remember the name of the school, but there was a massacre where they killed everybody, all the kids in the school, they killed the teachers, they killed everybody. They were sent in to kill everybody, to slaughter them because they were First Nations. And what happened to the First Nations? I mean, they were used as slaves too. So we can't forget that. And in Canada, thankfully, our government said, yep, we're going to have this Indigenous Peoples Day, you know? And that's the way that it should be. That's the way it should have been. And that's the way it should always be. People should remember that that happened to people, real people. Like in my case, my mom and her entire family, um, and when I knew them, there was 18, but my grandmother birthed 26. Some died of polio and other things, smallpox and whatnot. Um, and my grandfather also had three other people, like kids before that, who I never met because, of course, they were a lot way older than his new family. My grandfather was 45 and he married my grandmother, who was 16. And they had together 24 children. My grandmother birthed at home all of those babies except two. Two of them she went to the hospital for because at that time that was acceptable. People went to the hospital, but she birthed her babies at home. She'd be doing laundry, go into labor, continue doing laundry. She was a tough woman. And you had to be back then because there was no washing machines. You had to scrub. Can you imagine? They lived in a one-bedroom shack, pretty much. And there was all these kids running around, all ages. And then the Catholic Church swooped in and took all the kids, or the 18 that I knew at the time, and split them up. And the boys went into one, and the girls go into another. All the boys were attacked by men and women. So the nuns and the priests attacked the boys, and the girls were attacked by the boys and the girls. So nuns and priests, including my mother, right? My mother, she's passed now, but she was 16 years old or 15 years old, and she was raped by one of the priests. They used to have to go in these, there was like dormitories, and there was like this long hallway, like a tunnel that you would have to go through. And you'd meet up. So the men's quarters would come from one direction and the women's, and then you meet up, and there'd be one hallway into the church and that sort of thing. And my mother said when she was walking through there that a priest grabbed her and raped her and, left her there. And all of my aunties and all of my uncles have been abused by the Catholic Church. All of them, you know. So, I mean, and this didn't happen in the 1800s. Well, the 1800s it started. I believe it was 1870, I want to say it started, till about the early 2000s. There were still residential schools here in Canada, and kids were still being abused. Now, it's not to say that every residential school was a bad experience for some of these kids. Some of these kids, it was okay. They treated the kids proper, they fed them proper, they clothed them, they taught them, they did all things. But they took the kids away from our family because they saw First Nations people as savages including one of our prime ministers, John A. Macdonald, which now people are saying get rid of his name on everything in Canada because he called our people savages. And he said it's justified to take away our children because we're savages. We don't practice religion, that they want, but we do. We had our own, way of thinking. And to this day, we appreciate Mother Earth. We appreciate the bounty that she gives us. We appreciate being alive in this area, in our lives where we can actually look at a tree and really look at a tree, not just look at a tree and go, right? Forget about it. But with us, it's like the cedar or birch bark. The birch bark made the birch bark canoes. And there's trees that you can go and I think it's birch, and you can peel off some of the outer layer of the skin of the tree, the bark, and use it in medicinal ways. And there's a lot of First Nations people who still do that, you know. But because we weren't seen as people, we were treated less than, and especially my mother. Like, my mother, so many times she had the Indian beat out of her when she was in the convent, as did most kids had the Indian beat out of her because the kids, when they were at home, they spoke languages like Cree, Ojibwe, Soto, Chippewa, Blackfoot, um, so many different languages that we spoke. But the government thought, oh, you know what? They're savages. Random question. No, no, she's not my type. Janet Jackson's my type. I might cross a line for Janet Jackson, as I said yesterday, um, but anyway, so people need to realize that it's time to say it's time. It's time to mend things, and the only way to mend something is by dealing with it. If you don't deal with it, it's not going to be mended. And so that's what I try to do. I try to deal with things. I like to try to you know enjoy. I mean, I've died twice. I've had heart attacks, strokes. My first heart attack was while I was having a test at the hospital for my heart, called an angiogram. And at that time, when they were doing the test on me, because they put radioactive dye in you, and you could watch it on the screen, just like they are, to see where the dye's going through and if there's problems. And it got to some part of my heart, and then I wasn't there. I was looking in this room that was completely white, like bright white. All the walls were, and the ceiling, everything was painted like a bright white color. And there were, I don't know, hundreds, maybe thousands of broken pieces of mirror that were floating. And out of each piece of the mirror was bright white light that was shining out of there. And I remember watching the doctor and the nurse and whatever inject me with, I don't know what it was, some drug to help my arteries not spasm. And they watched it happen. And the doctor, when I eventually came to, the nurse was saying, Wanda, Mrs. Probe, open your eyes, Mrs. Probe. Breathe, breathe, Wanda. You can do it. Breathe. And I'm like, well, I'm not, I'm here, right? I can hear you, but I couldn't see anything at this point. I was blind for about an hour. And then I slowly started getting my vision back. I could see her eye, the nurse's eye first, and then it opened up, and then I could see. Eventually, I could see everything. You know, but it was an extremely horrific experience. And the second time I died, I did it at home. Thank God my husband was there. He basically, uh, I stood up. I had taken three, um, what do you call nitro? Three nitro sprays under my tongue. And other than giving me a really bad headache, it wasn't helping with the chest pain. And I stood up and said to my husband, I have to go lay down. I'm not feeling good. And that's the last thing I remember. And then the next thing I remember is waking up and having really sore cheeks on my bed. My husband said, I panicked. You weren't breathing. And he says, I thought you fainted at first. And he said, so I brought you to the bed and I laid you down. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, but why are my cheeks sore, right? And he says, well, I thought you fainted at first. So I started smacking you in the face, like, wake up, Wanda, wake up, like they do in the movies, wake up, wake up. But he realized that, my mouth was blue and there was no oxygen. I wasn't breathing or anything. And so he did CPR on me and he saved my life. So I remember going to the hospital and just crying because I just felt so bad. I felt bad that that happened. I felt, when I got into the truck with my husband to go to the hospital, I started to cry, and I'm like, what else can happen? Because I have I had a problem with my artery spasming. It's gone into remission now, but the problem was the artery spasm, and I ended up, I'm sitting in the truck with him and I'm like crying and I'm saying, oh my God, and this is horrible and I feel like I might die. And he says to me in his typical way, well, we all got to go sometime. At which point I was laughing and crying so hard in the truck. So it's true, but, I was like, maybe I shouldn't have said it just then. But he did. So I'm going to end my broadcast now because I've been on an hour and I have to get to this stuff. So thank you so much for watching, and thank you, Melanie. Thank you for sending me the message and giving me a topic to do, a stream about. So if anybody else has a topic that they would like to discuss with me, you can send an email to realvoiceforsilent@gmail.com. That's with the number four, not FOR. So real voice number four silent dot at gmail.com. All right, I have to get back to what I'm doing.